Kawhi Leonard is no longer a Raptor, but he might just be the greatest Raptor ever, despite only being in Toronto for 349 calendar days. I'm Danielle Michaud, joined by Michael Grange. Like, I gotta say, when I think of Kawhi's tenure in Toronto, it was like the great summer romance. Getting over the breakup with DeMar DeRozan, fun guy, he woos you with his on-court play and whatnot. And just when you're thinking of your future together, poof, summer's over, it's September, back to the hard reality. How do you kind of encapsulate this time with Kawhi?
Well, as I think vaguely back to any of those life experiences,
right?
Yeah, no, it's been a while, but I think there's something to that. And I've always thought that, the one unfortunate thing about this whole experience as it relates to Kawhi Leonard is you can't begrudge that he left. You can't begrudge how it all went down. You can't. You have to understand the circumstances in which he came into your life as a Raptors fan. But the one thing you're missing is the opportunity to kind of revel in this championship. It's obviously a once in a lifetime thing, or has been so far in your lifetime as a Raptors fan, and who knows when it'll come again. And so, I think it's a very natural, normal tendency to kind of, you won, and you just get to kind of bask in it all summer, and then training camp revisit it, and then you go maybe your Christmas Day game or whatever kind of the perks that come with being an NBA champion. And so, the way things have gone down, boom, right away, that's gone, and it's back to reality, and it feels almost more like a dream maybe than it was, because it was real. But I agree, it was that's a tough thing for a Raptors fan, is to your greatest triumph is paired with maybe one of your something you've got to grieve. It's the loss of the guy who brought you that triumph.
And I think that's forced Raptors fans to try to revel in the time that was. It was short but sweet. And when you go back to the very beginning, a lot of questions concerning, could Kawhi even be the player he once was? All the injuries had people discussing, could he return to form? How do you put this season into his own career goals? How do you feel it stacks up against his other years?
Well, I think it's his greatest season. He said, in the heat of the battle, like moments after winning that title, this is the most fun he's had playing basketball. This is the most enjoyable experience he's had playing, and it was, I think, adjacent to that season. Which, it's funny from the outside. When we were all watching that unfold in San Antonio, there's some questions: how badly is he hurt? His teammates even questioned him at times. And then, there was, when he talked about it through the course of the season and again at the NBA Finals, saying how frightened he was for his career. And so those concerns were real. He wasn't sure coming into this season in Toronto if he was going to be able to play at the level that he holds for himself, and that he'd sort of shown he was able to play, which is, obviously MVP level basketball. And so to kind of accomplish that, and then to be able to attach a championship to that, I think for him, I can't guarantee. I would say to this point in his career is probably his highlight. Maybe going with his breakout in when he won the Finals MVP in 2014, but people forget. I mean, he was a role player.
Yeah.
Like, he won the MVP because he was able to lock down LeBron James, sort of, and then deliver enough offensively to earn that award. But this is, this body of work is the best he's ever accomplished.
It's really him. He was the driving force behind this. It felt like he hit another stratosphere throughout the playoffs, and drew comparisons to Michael Jordan. I don't know what more, like, that doesn't need any further explanation. Right. But it makes you wonder, even though it's short, is he the greatest Raptor to ever suit up? I
mean, I think he's the greatest player who's ever been a Raptor for any given game, any given playoff series. I don't think there's even that much debate, to be honest. I mean, Vince Carter at his peak, 2001 season, 2001, 2002, he put up numbers that are nearly comparable. But of course doesn't come with the playoff success and the all-around play and all of that. So he obviously did some incredible things. DeMar DeRozan kind of gets a little bit of a short shrift because when you adjust for minutes and things like that, the last two seasons he played in Toronto before he was traded were, in my mind, the best regular seasons in terms of offensive production that Raptors ever had. And then his body of work is considerable Kyle Lowry, he maybe doesn't have the box score numbers that are attached to these kinds of conversations. But when you're looking about what Kawhi Leonard did for those 24 games in the postseason, I mean, he's on a list of maybe 5 NBA players of all time. So yeah, he's the best who's ever been a Raptor.
And that, of course, brings up these legacy conversations. And some are saying, how can you say legacy when it's such a short time? But what more could have he done?
Right. I mean, it's like nobody, longevity and legacy don't necessarily mean the same thing. I mean, a lot of times a legacy flows out of longevity because there's not that signature moment that, everyone can understand. And so before Kyle Lowry was an NBA champion, the question might have been, was he the greatest Raptor ever? And you would have put it in the context of the number of years he played and all the records the Raptors set while he was sort of their driving force, and you would have deservedly convinced yourself, he had a legacy here, and he does. It's bigger now because he's an NBA champion. So I think for Kawhi Leonard, he wasn't a bit part in the Raptors winning their championship. He was the reason they won a championship. He's the reason Serge Ibaka can call himself an NBA champion. I think, to me, if I was going to discuss his legacy, as I think about it, is because of his brilliance, he gave guys like Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry, Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, go on down that list. He gave them a platform in which they could prove that they too are champions, right? And so Fred VanVleet, wherever he goes, the rest of his career can say, Game 6, elimination on the road, fourth quarter, I delivered. Kyle Lowry can say, Game 6, first quarter, I set the tone for my team in a hostile building in a game that we needed to win. So and all those people can say that, and I think as athletes, that's really what you want. I mean, the ring is great.
Yeah.
I'm a champion. All these things are wonderful, but really what you want is a validation and an argument stopper that, when things were the most critical, when the pressure was the highest, when the chance of failing is the greatest, that you stood tall. And because of Kawhi Leonard, he gave all of those guys that platform, and they'll always have that for their career. And I think, organizationally, you also have that. So you have the Raptors as an organization, Maple Leaf Sports as an ownership group, Masai Ujiri as an executive, Nick Nurse as a coach. They all can say, look, when circumstances allow, when things break in our favor, and everyone would say luck is a big part of that, we're a championship level organization. The fan base can
look at
say,
it.
We're a championship level. We can deliver a passion here. It's important to us, and look. And so for all those reasons, Kawhi Leonard, 60 regular season games, 24 postseason games, he still deserves every bit of credit the city, the organization can give.
You make me think of the very first day with Masai Ujiri when he said, we need to believe.
Believe in the city. Believe in yourselves.
We need to believe we can be winners. And Kawhi has now given this city that. You rang off the names of players on the roster, but who do you think was impacted the most by Kawhi's leadership?
I think Kyle Lowry. I think he saw something in the way Kawhi Leonard, and he talked about it many times, Kawhi Leonard conducted his business. And I think it gave Kyle a sense of confidence and understanding of the level of confidence you need to have in your game to thrive at a championship level. And that's not to say Kawhi Leonard made Kyle better or unlocked some part of his game that wasn't there before. But I think just the kind of the steady, even keel approach was something that Kyle Lowry in particular, but any of those guys, like Pascal Siakam for the rest of his career, to have this as a reference point, that's massive. Also, OG Anunoby, that whole roster is going to be affected by that. So, but if I had to pick one guy, I'd say Kyle.
It'd be Kyle. Now, if you look back, it's easy to describe Kawhi as a player, but following him closely, what have you learned about Kawhi as a human, if anything, or as a person?
Well, I think, to me, it was very revealing how he carried himself after they won.
Fun guy, what's up, baby?
What it do, baby?
Yeah, you already know. Yeah.
And, it's very easy to kind of pigeonhole people in terms of how they carry themselves because you see them in only a certain environment. And, the robot line, the machine, the machine learning basketball player, whatever you want to say. And that's part of it. But I remember going into Game 5, I believe, and just, the Raptors were just on the cusp of potentially, winning the title. And I asked Kawhi Leonard, like, how do you not get ahead of yourself? How do you, as an athlete, be able to stay in the moment? He talks about that a lot. And he explained practice, right? And so we kind of ascribed to him these qualities that presumably he's always had because that's all we've ever seen. And he said, no, I had to learn this trial and error throughout my career, going over big games. And he used the word delete at one point.
Making sure I could use, the things that were good and delete the things that were bad to, help me be more successful.
So studying what worked, deleting what didn't work. And it was a real insight into him sort of taking a step-by-step approach to that element of his game. And then they win, the pressure's off, and we see, alcohol and desserts.
Dancing.
Like he's a different person. He's going to Jays games. He's fooling around with Serge Ibaka. Like there's a real personality there.
I'm just drinking alcohol and eating desserts all the time.
And so when you contrast those two things, it's clear that when he's in competition, he's on a mission. It's all encompassing. It is really what he allows himself to show. And then once the mission is accomplished, he's a different guy. So it would have been nice, obviously, to kind of get a little more flavor of that going forward. But I think we got enough to have a feel for it.
If they ever come to this, should they build him a statue, Mike?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I said that in my column. I think you could retire his number. You could build him a statue. I don't think it'd be alone, right? It's not, it wouldn't go up before anyone else's.
Yeah.
But certainly, you look ahead, and should there not be, we have the Leafs collection of greats out front, and should there not be, Serge Ibaka, Kyle Lowry, Marc Gasol, Kawhi Leonard, and I would say somewhere off, just kind of adjacent to DeMar DeRozan, and a couple of jerseys go up. But it'll have to happen, kind of organically, and when the time is right. But anything you can do as an organization to preserve this experience and make Kawhi Leonard part of the legacy long term, I think you'd be foolish to allow the fact that he chose to go home in free agency to somehow embitter you or make you hesitant to do that.
If they made a movie about Kawhi Leonard's time with the Toronto Raptors, what should the tagline be?
Fun while it lasted.
See? Fun guy while it lasted. That's awesome. Thanks, Michael.
Thanks.